This is Andy Tube, and this is part 3 of the restoration of a Singer button style foot pedal or foot controller. And put my glasses on here. What we're going to do now is polish up some of these metal parts here as part of the cleaning. I use usually Brasso for this. It's an old-time metal polish. It's very inexpensive, about $6 a bottle. I also have used Peak from England, P-E-E-K, and a lot of my friends use a metal polish called Maas, M-A-A-S, that they're quite happy with. But the Brasso on this kind of stuff has always worked well for me, so I'll just be using that today. And I shake it up good and get a dollop full in the lid like that. And these are small areas, so I just use a Q-tip or a cotton bud. And since this is what's going to contact the metal end contact of the carbon stack, I always want to be sure that that is clean and polished as I can get it. So I'll spread this on here and let the chemicals do the work. I've had these where they've been very pitted, and even I had a couple where a hole had burned right through this. And on the advice of a friend, I put some solder on there. Applied some solder, and just the way what we used to call tinning the wires, we twist the wires together and melt a little solder on it and let it cool to harden. And I fixed both of them with that, just a real small amount, but it built up the contact enough that it fixed the problem. But these are just stained or with that burnt carbon, which is very, very common. I see some of it on every one of these that I open up to some amount, some not too bad. This was about average. I've seen it a lot worse. So I'll put some of that on there. And even though this is inside and not visible, since it got some stains on it from cleaning, I'll put a light coat on there. And maybe a little bit on this brass ring that holds everything together. And while that's working, I'll do a little bit on these copper ending pieces just to polish them up a little bit. If you don't feel the need to do this, I've never put a meter like before. See, here's a little bit more of that copper or that carbon buildup. I've never put an electric meter on them before or and after to say, oh, I got 5% more electricity or 20% more or something like that. And maybe it's psychological, but it always seems more powerful to me after I've polished them up. And if you have like a Dremel or a similar tool like that and you want to buff them up with that, that's fine too. I just find that there's always some oxidation on the metal, so just putting this on will clean that oxidation off and polish things up a little bit. Sometimes these parts, when I clean the polish off, there's a little residue, and I'll clean that off with an alcohol swab. I've rubbed off that carbon deposit too with a pencil eraser. I've had pretty good luck with that. I looked around and all my pencils are about as old as me, so the eraser was as hard as a rock, so I figured I'll skip that part and just use the metal polish here today. Let's see if we can wipe off the excess here and see how they look. Well, that sure looks a lot better. The carbon deposit's gone and they're not pitted. So just this cleaning is going to take care of it for me. Wipe off the excess on the back here and get the steel and the brass cleaned up and shiny again. It looks real nice. So I have a little bit more alcohol. This is clean alcohol, not the alcohol I had the rubber feet on. So I'm just going to dip them in there to make sure I get all of that metal polish off. And I'll dry it with a little rag here. That came out pretty nice, if I say so myself. What do you think of that? Came out pretty good. This steel came out clean on the back. Let's go ahead and wipe off the brasso from these contacts. Yep, they look good. I think I'll go ahead and rinse them in the alcohol too. So that doesn't take too long, cleaning up those old carbon deposits there. Should be long enough. You notice I put gloves on here because these chemicals are more harsh than the crud cutter cleaner. Nice. And I'm going to be opening up that carbon stack, and that carbon is just that. It's really fine carbon dust, and it will get into your skin and under your fingernail in a heartbeat. So, okay, I'll put those back in my little metal storage bin and put the lid back on my cleaner and wipe that up later. Get this out of the way in my pads. Some trash. Now I'm going to be working with the actual carbon resistor now. So let me get set up for that and we'll continue with that part. Okay, you noticed I put a paper towel under here now. Because that carbon dust will get in the rag and on the desk and all over, so this way I can just dispose of it. I think maybe I showed before in here, these metal contacts here are held in place by a little bracket. The bracket is screwed from the front of the resistor package here. And I opened up exposed one of the screws here. And it's a long skinny screw that goes right through here next to the carbon stack to hold that, not much light in there, to hold that bracket in place. And what this white stuff is here, it's almost like a plaster of Paris. I'm not sure why they put it in there, but I just kind of scraped it out with a pocket knife and it crumpled like hard chalk kinda, or paste, and that exposed the head of the screw. And I gotta scrape out where the screwdriver blade goes in there. You can see I got most of it out now. Let me just scrape that out a little bit more there so I can get a screwdriver blade in there. And when I put these back together, I don't put anything. A couple times in the beginning I put a silicone caulking, kind of plugged it with that, but now I don't do anything. They're recessed screws. I'm not worried about them shorting out or anything. If you could put some wall spackle, I guess, or silicone. I wouldn't use anything like I forget what they call it now, but you put it on screws so that they won't back out. Loctite or screw tight, something like that. I would not use anything like that on any part of the sewing machine, because you'll have the heck of a time someday when you want to remove that screw. So I can put my finger now on the retaining clip that's holding that in, and I can take out, there's that long skinny screw I was telling you about. And I guess we'll do one of these at a time. Now what's going to happen here is the retaining clip is going to come out. Right there's the retaining clip, and this is the contact point. It's metal. You can maybe you can see all of the carbon deposits on there from the being contacted with this. This squeezes in and makes contact right like that. So there's burnt used carbon there, just like there was on the spring. And now you're going to see the actual carbon stack, carbon discs, come out. Whee, look at them all. Look at that. Whew. I'm going to have to put those all back in. I hope you guys appreciate this, huh? So now, from up here all the way to the end, I've removed all those carbons. And I'm happy to see that most of them, if not all, look intact. Sometimes what I've seen is the first 2 or 3 to come out have been quite burnt looking. I've had them come out cracked and chipped. I haven't got the delivery yet from Michael Lang of the ones that he poured out, but if you saw the coming soon video for this mini-series, you saw a big pile of disintegrated carbons. These all look good. And I will dust these off. I've had guys tell me that they clean them with a pencil eraser if there's burnt marks, but I tried that once and it just cracked. These are like a real thin lozenge, and I mean they are delicate. So I go through, and if any are cracked, I take them out. And if I reduce 3 on one side, then I reduce 3 on the other, even if they're not bad. I always end up with an equal amount of these carbon discs on either side. There's a couple that seem to want to be stuck together here. Or is that the thicker, heavier one? Yeah, usually at the, depending on your model of this foot pedal, this is one very thick carbon disc. And in this case, it was the first one in up to here. And then this metal contact was the last thing put on. And sometimes there isn't a metal contact, it's different, and you'll find two thick pieces of the carbon disc, one at each end. So in this case, the first thing I'll be putting back in is this carbon disc that's about as thick as maybe 3 of the other discs. Yeah, I'll put that aside so I don't forget to do that. So these are good. I'm not seeing any chipped or burnt. There's just the normal carbon dust. And after cleaning, I didn't have a musty smell on the other parts, and I don't have a musty smell on this. I haven't even cleaned it. But unfortunately, the cord, the cord, even after I cleaned it and scrubbed it, boy, that smell came right back. So I'm soaking the cord right now in a solution of white vinegar and water with the hope that I get that smell. I can't live with that smell. If I can't get it out, I figured next I'd try some bleach and some water. And if that doesn't work, I'm just going to have to buy a new cord. Because, man, it's bad. So I don't know. The cord must have been someplace where it got mold or mildew on it. Here's my other long skinny screw, and you saw that everything came right out here. This is the retainer. Here's the metal contact that has the carbon deposits on it. And where is it? The last one that came out is the like double or triple thick carbon, so that'll go back in first. I'll put that up here with the other one, and then let's examine these, and everything looks good here. I see one that's kind of chewed up on the end, so it's taken a few hits. I'll put that one aside. But the rest of them look good, especially ones that are cracked you want to get rid of. And if I have little like burn deposits, usually what I'll do is just wipe them on the towel. I don't try and use anything forceful. That one's got a little tiny chip out of it. So I'm going to go clean this with the crud cutter the way I clean the other parts, because there'll be carbon all over inside here, carbon dust. So I'm going to clean that and dry that, and I'll come back and we'll put it back together.